I just realized how much I've worn down the nib on my pen. Hey guys, welcome back to another evening. Late in the evening. It's actually the next morning. It's about 12:52 a.m. I'm gonna get my drawing in for the day. Gonna work on some stuff and that sort of thing. And no, I don't have any idea what I'm gonna be drawing tonight. I am focused on the fact that I have to get a new nib for my pen. It's like really short. It's kind of angled on one side. Now it's making me realize like maybe why it hasn't been completely exact. Let me also adjust my lighting. I don't think you guys can tell this whenever I do this on video, but I have a program on here called Flux, and what it does is it actually cuts out the blue light at night and turns all of my monitors more of an amber color. You can go in and you can adjust what the I think I can show you guys here in just a second. So it's basically this, and what this is this allows me to be able to disable and get the lighting to where I want it to be. Whenever I start working in artwork, it wasn't totally necessary right now. This is just for practice. But if I'm doing any graphic design, any freelance, or anything that remotely requires as accurate as I can get, these aren't calibrated monitors, color usage, then I'll turn it off and make sure that it's not interfering with how I'm picking and choosing colors. The only reason I'm even pulling that off is because this has blue blocker on it, which has been a lifesaver. I was getting migraines forever, and so that's what that was about. So I don't know if the video actually recorded the thing being amber. If you saw that, then cool. All right, let me see here. Man, I don't even know where to begin. You know, something that I guess I can start with tonight was that there was, I know I haven't covered this because it's been kind of a heavy thing for me, but one of the movies that I really enjoyed watching a while back was Black Panther. And so starting off with that, you guys are probably thinking, okay, we know where this is going to go. And I think you'd be right to assume that. Chadwick Boseman was hell of an actor. And I'm only just now discovering some of the other stuff that he had, in his repertoire, and different things he'd worked on and stuff. In case you're wondering, I have no idea what I'm drawing. I'm just kind of drawing to get some stress out. That's all. And he, I'm not gonna kid. Having heard that he died suddenly from colon cancer, and how bad it had gotten and all this other stuff, was pretty terrifying. Being the age he was, with as much promise and influence as he was showing in so many things, it's actually pretty unnerving in a lot of different ways. Not just from the aspect of mortality, which is a theme that, I'm consistently, thinking about and engaged with in my head, not because of anything macabre necessarily, but more because I think that's something that, most people aren't comfortable talking about or thinking about. And so whenever that sort of thing comes up, people don't want to readily talk about death in its aspect of, what did it mean? And what I mean by that is you'll always hear stories of people that will talk about, the fact that, oh, well, this person, they were such a great person and all these other things, and that's fine, but I tend to think that if we could make more of an effort to understand more about our own mortality and what he must have been facing, which I think he did. I think he was the kind of guy that, because of what he was facing and what he went through, had no other choice but to meet that head on. And man, I don't know that I could have handled it with as much grace or composure as he did. Sincerely. I mean, I've probably been thinking about that way too much, but it's been at the back of my mind for a while, and it's just weird. it's not like I try and sit here and think about stuff like that all the time. I really don't. But without getting too much more carried away on that, I just wanted to kind of put that out there that, you know, his portrayal in that movie, Black Panther of T'Challa, that affected me. I have very little African American ancestry in me. My parents did the whole DNA thing. I have yet to do it, but we were able to figure out like that there's a certain percentage and all this other stuff and everything else like that. So this isn't coming from anything where I feel like culturally he necessarily affected anything for me in that way, except to portray a very positive and powerful and actively good character, a person of color in a movie. You know, growing up, I didn't have a lot of that. I've touched on that before. You know, I watched stuff like Marshall Bravestar, and you know, looked for the Native American and Hispanic characters in different shows that had some inkling, some iota of something that I could attach to and be able to, you know, relate to. And so for him, when I saw it, that was just nice to be able to see somebody doing a character that wasn't necessarily, you know, in any other, it didn't for all that it was worth, it didn't end up following the stereotypes that are so attributed out there to any films that have people of color, because it's normally always some sort of film that talks about poverty or struggling and or drug usage and criminal activity, which always gets to me, you know. And there's always, and you know, even though I loved movies like Cheech and Chong growing up and stuff like that, I think a lot of that just went a long ways toward narrowing that field of vision and giving a stereotype more legs than it probably should have. Now, that being said, of course, yeah, I laughed and I enjoyed those movies growing up and that sort of thing. And, you know, something isn't funny unless there's some truth inside of it. But notice that I say some. And it was really refreshing to see how they did Black Panther. And I think the director's name is Ryan Coogler. Coogler, I think is his name. Did an amazing job with it. The entire cast was profoundly good. And because of that, it made it easier for me to be able to lose myself in the film and really, really enjoy it, you know? And it was something where his passing, you know, it hit me hard enough because it was like, God dang it, man. Like, there's already not enough good people to look up to that are people of color in movies. And he was definitively the star of what I believe is the biggest film in a long while, if not the biggest film. I mean, did it break $1 billion? I want to say it did. I should have looked into that, but that's just stunning. And I guess his absence is going to be felt for a long time, not just because of, you know, personal things from other people, you know, having to deal with his family dealing with that absence and stuff, but also because, you know, it's just, you kind of wonder like what else they could have brought to roles. River Phoenix comes to mind. Different actors and musicians that died in their prime. People, and I'm not saying that death isn't sad when it's somebody's parent, sibling, whatever. But there's something about people who walk into the plane of having fame accompany them. And for better or for worse, those people are influencers. And they affect our lives. Not maybe as directly as we think, but they do influence us. They either bring us entertainment or information, something digestible that we keep in here or in here. And it affects us all differently. I have plenty of friends that don't really care or thought that much about Black Panther. That's fine. They're not in my shoes. They didn't have my upbringing. They don't know what I went through. And so they could never understand why Black Panther and Bosman were that important to me, not even being an African American man, but being a person of color. So I won't keep on harping about all this. Basically, I'm just saying that, like, this was a circumstance where I really wondered, you know, how Marvel's going to handle this as well too. You know, because that's something I wasn't really sure about. I kept wondering to myself, I'm like, man, how are they gonna, you know? And what I think will end up happening is his younger sister, the character in the movie, will more than likely raise to the mantle, because Black Panther is simply a position. It's its own character. His father was Black Panther prior to him. So either way, I'm hoping that Marvel and Disney decide to do a good job with it, and, you know, kind of hold it together and don't mess this up. And it's not like I have a whole bunch of concern for a multi-billion-dollar corporation, but I know what these characters mean for people like myself, and what in general that spells out for people that, you know, want to be able to find something positive in this. Anyway, so I don't know what this character is. Getting off that little bit of a soapbox there about that. Sorry if I annoyed any of you with that, but it was something that I don't feel I'd really talked about prior. And honestly, I couldn't really bring myself to talk too much to it a few weeks ago. I think he's only been gone, 2 weeks now, right? That's so messed up. You know, in general, 2020 has been one hell of a year. It has been, I don't know how it's been for you guys, but I'm not going to lie, it's been a very, very strange year for me. And, you know, there have been circumstances where I've had stuff come up that I'm like, wow, I didn't see that developing. I didn't see this coming along. The crazy part is, and I don't know how this has been for you guys, in some circumstances, you know, distance and the internet have allowed me to bridge gaps with people that I maybe hadn't talked to in a while. It's also allowed friendships to grow and evolve and blossom into some really cool stuff. That was stuff I hadn't really expected, you know, because, you know, one of the things is, so the new Hot Topic, and I'm going to actually watch it again tonight after I get done practicing drawing. There's a great show on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. And it's woo, it's shocking. It shouldn't be shocking, because it talks about our addiction to doing, you know, stuff on social media and all this other stuff, right? And how we what is it? Basically how we're used. We are the product. We are the end product of, you know, a lot of stuff that the companies want from us. You know, like they're not in the business of selling data, which is essentially what they get at. And I sort of knew that. I mean, why would they sell the data they worked so hard to get? They're going to utilize our actions. They're going to study what we do. It's one of the reasons why I've always had big problems with the memes and things that showcase, like, oh, hey, here I am at 6 years old, here I am at this age. And the amount of information that they can extrapolate from that sort of thing is mind-numbing. It's abso-freaking-lutely mind-numbing. And it shouldn't be. I mean, because of algorithms, because of all this other stuff, it doesn't take much. The learning aspects and all this other stuff they can utilize on software is actually really stunning, to pick up patterns, to understand what we are, what we want, what we do. And the real money for them comes from the advertising dollars. So basically, I've given you a nutshell of it, but you really need to watch it if you haven't, because the people involved aren't just they aren't just talking heads. They're people who worked for social media giants who decided to come forward and have a moral aspect brought forward. Like, why aren't we doing something? Why? Because there's a guy on there. This one guy, I think he's the first one that gets interviewed on there. He's the one that was addicted to checking his email. And I know, like, sometimes I can kind of be that way. Um, because, you want that instant gratification. You want that moment of knowing if somebody's responded back to you, whether it's a job, whether it's, just a conversation, whatever. And just, when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, there are little insidious ways that they'll do stuff. Like if you're on Facebook and you're waiting for something to come through, it does the little dot 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 in the messaging, to kind of build that anticipation. And there's a dramatization that goes along with it that's really good. So, man, this is kind of turning into a review session for this, isn't it? And so because of that, it gives you this it gives you a really wild look into all of that stuff. And again, none of it should really be surprising. None of it should be anything that we're like, what? I didn't know that. It shouldn't be any of that. It should be, well, yeah, that makes sense, because it's exactly what happened to me. What it did do was reinforce something I'd done a while back, and it's not directly about social media, but it was about exposure to my phone. My phone, whenever I pick it up, it's programmed to go ahead and like turn on and show me the time and that sort of thing. But it'll also show me notifications, right? I've turned those off. I've also turned on the app in there that is built into my iPhone that Androids have it too. It's basically talking about your screen time. Now, once I had done that and was able to see the color-coded remnants of what my time had been spent doing, playing games, checking social media, checking email, whatever, I was astounded. And I know I've touched base on this in a past video, because when I first started it, I was like, oh yeah, it won't be that bad. It'll be a few things, but it's not going to be anything horrible or horrific or anything where I'm going to be like completely, shocked about, how much time I actually spend on there or anything. No, I was shocked. It was unfortunate and really bizarre to see just how much damn time I would spend on my phone, to the point to where it becomes almost like this this comfort zone, and it shouldn't be that. I think I remember even seeing a product one time on Amazon. It was literally a plastic brick that felt like a phone. It was to help you break your dependency on your phone but still be able to carry this around. Why? And then I realized, well, that same sort of physiology, or is that even the word I'm looking for? That same sort of, I'm going to call it an impairment, carries through for people that maybe want to quit smoking but still want to hold on to something like a cigarette, or there's these mechanical things that we end up, these physical things that we end up going through. And I think that the interaction with social media and a lot of the stuff that's on our phones also falls into that. There's this weird thing where we have this, I don't know. For me, I can speak honestly to this. It's like this weird codependency thing where I'm like, I have to have some interaction. Somebody has to validate my existence. Well, something, and that's a real thing. That's me being as honest as possible. When you don't get the likes, when you don't get that reaction, people think, oh my God, did I say something? Have I been shadow banned? People are strange, and we tend to think things like that. And certain personalities don't do very well with it. And I know early on I didn't. Back with MySpace, other stuff like that, it was the same sort of thing. I mean, honestly, let's be real. Social media in general is something. It's not something of. It's really kind of a popularity contest on a daily factor. Now, the good thing is that there's a good amount of people that are just utilizing it for catching up with people, keeping track of their family and all that sort of stuff, and you get to catch up with people you normally wouldn't see or interact with, and that's been a good thing. I certainly am not knocking that. I've had plenty of opportunities that have come up. I've grown, like I said, I've grown closer with people that under normal circumstances I probably wouldn't have had that same opportunity to do. And but at the exact same time, you're also given a narrative that is unusual, because you get to see these pieces and parts of these people's lives, and they'll interact and come into that sort of zone. So you're almost on this waiting timeline. You're watching this conveyor belt of actions go by you. And because it's a conveyor belt, your attention is so drawn toward it. It's so enamored of it that it's hard to figure out like when to step away, like when it's okay. Like, I know that for some people I've spoken to about it, they were like, well, I get it, but it's like, if you step away, you feel like it's going to like just pile up on you. It's almost like that old I Love Lucy episode where Lucy and her friend are working the candy uh, conveyor belt, and after a while they're shoving them in their mouth and in their shirt and everything else like that because they're just falling behind. They fail miserably. They end up getting fired, I believe. And because of that, it's just ridiculous, like the stuff we'll put ourselves through to you know to justify wanting to be in the know consistently. And I think to some degree, depending on the personality, depending on who you are, that may work for you. There's some people that's absolutely what they want. They're busybodies. I know, like my neighbor Lloyd is one of those guys. Like Facebook probably isn't good enough for him. He's the kind of guy, and I've made it pretty clear whenever I've spoken to him. He's the kind of guy that if you give him an inch, he's going to take a mile. He's the kind of guy that, like, if he even has the inkling that he can go in your house and not have to knock or anything, he's definitely going to do it. And but yeah, I don't know. I mean, and it's one of those shows too where I needed to go back and kind of watch it again to make sure I really did pick up on everything they were talking about, because there was moments in there where I would stop and go, wow, like, that's really crazy. That's really nuts. Like, I hadn't thought about some of that stuff. And again, I think it just comes down to, I can't say, and this is just kind of my own thing, I can't say that social media has been a bad thing. And I'm not just saying that because I'm sitting here drawing and I'm going to post this video as soon as I'm done, and I'm going to hope that there's people that like it, hope that I can gain some more followers on YouTube. Of course, this is the modern world. This is where we are. But I don't ever want anyone, and this is the dichotomy that I'm personally in. Because I'm a content creator, of course I want people to watch. Of course I want people to be engaged with whatever I have to bring to the table. I want people to be able to feel like, he makes stuff that's worth watching. That's the ultimate compliment for anybody to say, is like, oh dude, I really dug that video you did. And I've gotten, like, recently the web series that I've been doing that we still haven't really named, that I was doing with my buddy Phil. It's the conversation show. Well, I've had people that have remarked on that, and that's a great feeling, when you feel some sort of validation there because people are really liking what you're doing and all that other stuff. That's great. But I also try to remember, I'm like, but that's just one aspect of what I do, I mean, admittedly, I'm still very much learning the ropes on that stuff. And because, for a long time, I've always just done where I'm doing this sort of thing kind of by myself. And I've interviewed people, but it's always been kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's always been in a factor where I had a control over it. Like, I would never interview people necessarily over video. I would do written interviews and stuff. So the interviews I have on my website are very much based on that. It's very laid back. It's very much, hey, just send this to me when you can, that sort of a thing. And so it's a new world for me to get into this sort of thing. And I know that in the back of my head, I'm always thinking to myself, like, is whatever I'm bringing informative? Is it fun? Is it entertaining? Is it worth a hill of beans to watch? That goes through my head right now as I'm even doing this sort of stuff. And because of that, it makes me really cognizant of, like, well, I know that people have better things to do than to, watch anything I'm putting out there. I mean, there's far more entertaining YouTubers and stuff like that. But I end up hoping, like, okay, well, maybe somebody will really like what I'm doing and will want to, stick around or comment or whatever. I sound so, I sound like I'm grasping for likes and that sort of thing. That's not what I'm doing. I apologize for that. I guess all I'm trying to say is the fact that, like, I do think to myself sometimes, like, are we a lost cause when it comes to this? Because I always figure to myself, like, I don't ever want to be the kind of person that can't step away from social media and still be able to function. And I really do wonder that about myself, to the point to where I've like made these points to like at late at night I turn off my ringer, you know. But I'm also, a lot of times I'm doing this, which is that any better? I mean, this right now isn't social media, except until I upload it, post it to my page, post it to my website, wherever, post it to YouTube. And now it becomes an interactive element, and I'm vying for your attention amidst a whole bunch of other stuff, from Disney Plus to Hulu to you name it. All these streaming services, all these other millions of YouTubers, hundreds of thousands of them having uploaded it at the same time that I did tonight, hoping you're going to stumble across us, find us, or if they've got a giant bevy of followers, that they're still going to be able to keep them, and that sort of thing, right? And so because of that, you know, I don't know. It's this weird anxiety thing that I end up giving myself. I'm like, why am I overthinking this? I don't know. I think some of it comes from the fact that, you know, I started thinking, I'm like, oh crap, am I part of the problem? Not saying that a bunch of people watch me. I'm just saying that, like, I don't know. I always end up overthinking stuff like that. It's weird because it's just like, it's like whenever I create artwork and I think to myself, like, oh man, I really hope this finds a good home, because I'd hate to think that my stuff would be in a landfill later. Or it's one of the reasons too why for a long time I was doing 3D printing and really enjoying it, and then it kind of hit me like, where's my stuff ending up? Like, where's all these extra prints that didn't work right? Where are they going? And I have a bunch of them back here on the desk that were either misprints, misfires, or whatever. And I have some that, you know, they're about ready to be cleaned up and sold and that sort of thing, you know. But I end up feeling really bad about that sort of stuff. And that's a parallel metaphor I'm using for this. I'm creating all this other stuff without really looking at what the implications of it are. We create a ton of, you know, social media. TikTok is a perfect example of this insanity. And I say insanity because, have you watched TikTok? Man, there are times when I feel old. That place definitely makes me feel old. And I was actually going to join it for a while because, you know, I kind of felt like, okay, maybe that's somewhere I could do spoken word and perform and do that sort of thing. Because I've yet to really find a good outlet for that, aside from going and performing for people, which is not really high on my list right now. That's just not something I'm super concerned with right now. And so because of that, you know, I thought, oh well, I can go on there and do this sort of thing. I'm still going to give it a try. I know that it's very much a young person's game on there and all that other stuff. That's fine. But I feel like, you know, people I have performed my stuff for have liked it, and I just want to find somewhere to be able to do that sort of thing. But then there's a part of me that was going, yeah, but why am I just shouting into the void? Because that's essentially what it is. I mean, YouTube is really no different. For that matter, neither is Twitch. Any platform that allows multiple people to be able to upload stuff, all of you are just yelling at the same damn time. That's what it turns into. And I don't want that to be the case. I want to be able to, you know, stake out myself from there and hopefully create some content that is compelling enough that people are like, hey, this guy, let's watch and see what he has to say. But anyway, I digress. I don't know. You guys find it hard to get online and find your niche or niche? What's the word? Tonight has been the night of mispronounced words. I did my my show earlier with Phil, and it was just me and Phil tonight. We were attempting to get, oh man, what was in the show notes? Yeah, it was all about physical media, and somehow we ended on dinosaurs. We went all over the place. I did not do a great job keeping us under control. I am a horrible, horrible showrunner. I do okay when it's just me, but I'm not hard to keep under control when it's me. I know exactly what I'm up to. When it came to that, though, I was like, oh God, all right, well, you know, and it's okay though, because I really like the what it turned into sort of a chaotic zone, and it was cool. I did like it quite a bit, so there wasn't anything wrong with that. But even when I'm doing that show, I think to myself, like, man, what is the end result here? What am I trying to do with this? And yeah, always kind of a strange place to be. When you're creating stuff, you want to hope that like, people will see it in the same vein that you see it in, and that they expect value and they get value out of what you're doing. But it's always such an odd place to be mentally as an artist, or as anybody putting content out there, because not everyone putting content is an artist. They're just not. They're speakers, poets, whatever. I'm gonna get some help for that. Poets are artists. Let me go ahead and clarify that now. So I had feathers drawn in. I think I'm gonna get away from that and just put kind of a furry mane on here. This thing's looking more and more like a Skeksis. Skeksis? Yeah, I think that's what it is. God, I love Dark Crystal. I can never get the names right. I think part of it is because I'm completely and totally like worn out. My insomnia kicked into overdrive. I was talking to a friend about this the other day, and just it's been hell. Just because like I'm like, man, I have these ideas I want to work on. I want to get things finished up, and waking up at like noon, man, that's some college level crap I can't be doing anymore. I just can't. I've got to get back on a better timing schedule for that, because it also kills it for freelance and that sort of thing. Oh, that is not a good way to go into any of that, and it can just mess you up your whole day, man. Oh god. Alright, well, this is coming out pretty cool. I actually like this character quite a bit. So like some of these characters are just ideas I had and stuff like that, but I wanted to do something like, I thought like there could be characters that I haven't really designed or thought about that play into some of the stories, and I purposefully wanted to work on the character sketches and not try and do any more finished artwork for Ardor right now, until I can get to the pages. So this is another thing here. I was thinking about this the other day. I have pages for Ardor sitting over here that are needing to be worked on, traditional ones. I'm not doing it digitally. Probably really stupid of me, but there's a reason for it. For my own sanity, I want to be able to give it a shot where I'm doing it, traditionally and that sort of thing. And so the point was that, I thought about this for a while, where I was like, well, do I end up doing Ardor? Because you see, the issue 0 was physical, okay? And then there was a part of me that was like, well, do I do it as a digital? Do I start uploading that as digital? Do I, do like I'm doing here and have a high enough resolution image where, things will be okay and it'll look good and it'll be fine and all this other stuff, where I can decide later, like, well, I'm going to upload this and turn it into a printed comic or a printed graphic novel. And I go back and forth on that. It's kind of cutting out the middleman of having to scan it in, color, recalibrate. I mean, with something like this, I simply turn off the channel or the layer that it's on. And that's not an issue. When it's traditional, you scan it and then you take it in, you knock out the blue in Photoshop. There's ways to do that. And that sort of thing. But what I always wondered was, should I do this? And what I mean by this is, there was a special, and I've spoken about it a lot of times, called Stripped. And in there it talked about the model that people that worked for the newspapers would use to propagate their work and advertise it and get it out there and all this other stuff, right? Well, and then there were the web guys that would put their stuff out there for free and essentially use the old model that like Saturday morning cartoons used, which is like, oh, well, if you like this, then, support us by buying stickers and all this other stuff and other merchandise. And by the way, that is, I don't know why, merch is a terrible word. I like the whole word merchandise. I can't stand the short-term merch. It drives me freaking bananas. and I have no reason for it aside from the fact that it's just one of those words that just triggers me. And I should be so much more better than that, but I'm honestly not. At any rate, I've thought about that for a while. So that was part of the reason why I've been reworking the story and kind of coming up with new ideas and figuring out what I wanted to do, what I wanted to draw, what I wanted to create out of it, and how it was going to come together. That was some of the stuff that I hadn't figured out yet. Like, well, what do I want this to be? What do I want this to turn into? Like, what is this going to look like if I do it digitally? How much faster will this be? A lot of stuff that as an artist you end up asking yourself. But in the end result, I wanted to go, well, how much will people appreciate the digital factor of it being out there? And then would they want to even see it? Would they even want to deal with it? Like, seriously, would they read it? Well, that goes back to how often do you put something out there, and is it palatable enough? Is it something that people find engaging and want to read? That's going to happen whether that's print or whether that's online. But at least online, I'm getting the exposure for it. Because this is a challenge that I've had recently. And while I was redoing my website recently and kind of, adjusting prices and adding some new stuff on there, that's theartisanrogue.com. You can see it down here in that little animated bit. When I was doing that sort of stuff, it hit me that, I don't advertise my stuff as much as I'd like. And this has been a big fat point of contention for me. I'm not a fan of when people will overpost and overshare. That drives me completely bananas. I can't help it, but I've also learned my lesson in the fact that, hey, if you don't believe in it and if you don't share it, nobody's going to care, right? So there's that reality for me. And so I have to remind myself, like, just like, any kind of marketing out there, sometimes it takes the fifth or sixth time somebody's seen something before they go buy something. And when I do make sales off my website, people have been like, I was looking at that for a while and I just kept forgetting, or a bill came up, or somebody else happened to advertise their artwork, so I bought that instead. But it's taken a lot more effort on my part to be able to dig into that. Like, when I did shows, I always, was always pretty proud of myself in the fact that 9 times out of 10, if somebody came up and talked to me, I could usually figure out what they liked and would know, for the most part, probably to some degree of accuracy, that whether or not they were going to buy anything from me. But that never drove how I interacted with people. I loved talking to people at shows, and I loved hearing about their stories. Worst comes to worst, they either took my business card or just said, hey, yeah, thanks, but I might come back later. A lot of times they did, and I'd sell. The challenge now has been, how in the hell do I translate that over into what I do online? So some of what I've thought has been, this is one way to talk to you guys, is getting off my duff and drawing, hopefully every other night, starting out, for 30 minutes to an hour, something, and then whether or not this digital work becomes something I sell, that's besides the point. But the point is to remind you guys that I do have stuff for sale on theartisanrogue.com. The links are below. And also just to try and engage and get the storytelling and comments going once again. I realized it for a long while, because all the shows had kind of started to peter out and get canceled, and all these other things were happening because of COVID-19. There was a big part of me that was like, well, what am I going to do? Because it doesn't matter how I draw if nobody knows. It doesn't matter what any of that is. It's the same for this YouTube channel. I mean, it's been a struggle to even get up to, at one point in time, I was stuck at like 20 people subscribing. Now, I know I need to keep providing content, and hopefully entertaining content at that, for the 88 of you that are on here now. And numbers aren't everything, but I know that just through the factor of attrition, when you're trying to sell something, you're trying to get people to share your stuff or talk about it or anything. Number one, it's got to be good. It's got to be entertaining. It's got to be worth them to watch and learn something maybe from. And then the other part of it has to be, can you hold that audience, and is whatever you're offering worthwhile for that audience? Like, that's something that, I have a hell of a time gauging that. I think some of it is because, and I've spoken about this before, man, but imposter syndrome, oh, guys don't know what that is, do yourself a favor. Well, no, don't do yourself a favor and Wikipedia that, because if you're on the cusp of doing something fantastic, don't burden yourself by looking into it too much. But essentially, it is exactly what it means. That whatever you're doing, you're not as good as you think you are at it. And that really, why are you wasting your time telling other people about it when you're not that great at it? You know, I feel fairly confident in getting on camera and drawing most days, and you know, being able to do stuff like that. The other two things that I do, which is, you know, I play guitar and I also do voiceover and I occasionally sing. I don't do that stuff on video because I'm not comfortable enough with it, you know? And a lot of that stuff those are things I want to overcome. Those are things that I want to add into my my arsenal of stuff that I want to be able to bring forward and put out here. But I also know too, I've had people ask me about this, you know, and I don't know how interested you guys would be about this stuff. I mean, because everybody and their grandmother reviews art supplies, but I have a ton of art supplies like this here. This is this really great stuff from Golden, this high flow marker paint, and I've had this for a little while. And I don't know why I'm shaking. It's just fun to shake. And I know that I have to review this. There's art supplies that I've gotten. There was a few. This was actually one that was sent to me for free. And like an idiot, I have never reviewed this thing. And I would probably be doing a lot better if I did review stuff. And because of that, you know, I thought, well, maybe this is something you guys would like to see. Is, you know, not under this circumstance. I would break out the desk and show you guys like a complete and total breakdown of it. I know that one I was holding off on actually was the review of this toner mic that I'm using, because it has worked out really well. I think my voice sounds good on it. No, I'm not trying to be egotistical. You people know what it's like. When you hear yourself the first time, you're like, I sound like that? And I like the way that it carries my voice. I know how to speak to it and all these other sorts of things. The form factor is great. And all that I was working into a review, so that way I would have that on my website and on my YouTube channel, so you guys could learn something from that. And if you want to get into it, you don't have to have a microphone like this. This wasn't even a high dollar microphone. It was a good budget friendly microphone. I did my research. I looked, and another YouTuber had actually influenced me on that. So, man, talk about tangents, man. I went off on a bunch of them tonight, didn't I? So, with that, I'm going to finish this here. Let's see here. Save it. And what is tonight's? Tonight is the 16th, I think, right? Oh, man, it is. All right, so 20. There's that. All right, so I signed a digital thing. Oh, man. I had thought for a while about putting these... putting a copy of these digital things, like not this one in particular, but you know, some of these that I end up working further along and putting them out there for sketches. But then I thought twice about that. I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to do that, then I'll end up making these physicals. There's a bunch of sketches on my website now. Some of them are a lot older and stuff. So there's some decent prices and some decent clearance levels on those things if you guys want to look into them. But if any, like, and I want to state this, if anyone has any interest in the digital stuff I'm doing or something like that, and you think it's kind of cool, occasionally I will post some of these online, and they'll be, you know, decent resolution. If you want to have a copy of it or something, or put it in your D&D campaign or something like that, just reach out. You can find me on any one of the social media. I like sharing my artwork, just give credit, that sort of thing. I don't give a lot of it out for free, but I have done that. One of the things I did, which has been really cool, and I don't talk about this very much, but there used to be, I think I still have it on my website, there used to be a trade section on there. And so for a while, I found a bunch of dudes that were part of my Star Yours group. Now, for those of you that don't know what that is, that's not a superhero group or anything. Star Yours is an old 80s property that only a few robot geeks like me really liked. It was released by an arm of Takara Tomy, and they're an offshoot of the line called Zoids. They had little gold and silver men in their heads and stuff, and they're these, well, according to the mythos, human-sized robots, but we're going to pretend that's not real. And I had a few of them when I was younger. Well, I wanted to round out that collection. Thankfully, you know, I didn't end up having to go to eBay for a lot of the major ones. There was a few I found, but I'm like, you know what? Maybe some of these groups are interested in graphic design or illustration. And they were really, really cool to work with. And there were a lot of people that were hoping to get, you know, Twitch channel graphics done or other stuff like that. I'll trade for stuff. That's always a good thing. So that's going to be a list I'm going to update soon with things that I would really like to get. And you would be kind of surprised what I'm willing to trade for. There's some pretty obscure and some pretty weird stuff out there that I really like, that if you have it and you want some artwork done, or you got a game you need artwork done for or something like that, we can probably work out some kind of deal there. So, man, Billy Mays would be totally disappointed in me right now. He'd be like, what are you doing? What are you doing giving away all your stuff? I'm not giving away anything. I just am trying to get a little bit more exposure and build some repertoire here. I am actually really tired. It is 1:38 in the morning, and with that, I am going to go ahead and let you go. Thank you for watching. I am Mario the Artisan Rogue. I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning of this video while I was talking about my worn out nib. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, a whole bunch of different places. I always make the joke that I am on far more platforms than I remember. I've forgotten the passwords for a lot of them. And on this is a show I've been doing with my buddy Phil Mackey. It's a show called Conversations. It's basically about conventions and that sort of thing. You can catch that on his Stay Tuned page. He's got a brand new series that will be coming up as well soon, and some other stuff in the works. I urge you guys to check out Phil Mackey's work. It's amazing. He's a hell of a dude working on animation, other stuff like that, and an all-around kick-ass guy. So that was actually something that we worked on earlier. So that new episode came out tonight, but by the time you guys see this, it would have been yesterday. So thanks again for watching, and I will catch you in the next video where I will draw more stuff and talk your ear off. Till then, see ya.